Hello folks, this is Lyron with the Fantasy Grounds Academy. Today we're going to start our solo encounter play series starring our Arla Ravenshade. She's actually a rogue assassin. I came up with this idea to help illustrate some of the concepts that are recommended and needed for new users and for intermediate users that have still yet to tackle some of the content in Fantasy Grounds. And one of the ways I'm going to do that is through the story of Arla Ravenshade. She happens to be she was wealthy at one time, and she kind of gave up all her wealth to pursue this endeavor that she has for kind of righting the wrongs of the injustices that happen. Strangely enough, she's like a convicted criminal, and the guy that's her nemesis, Wortimer here, this is kind of like her archenemy. He knows who she is, kind of. He knows her upbringing. He actually knew some of her relatives. She was born in Baldur's Gate. And he kind of came up to the ranks, and I think he may have served with one of her relatives in a military conflict or something like that. Anyway, so Wortimer here has a vendetta against her. One, he feels that she's betrayed her family. So that right there alone irritates him. Secondly, he knows that she's been involved in some pretty heinous crimes. And then third, he's kind of a corrupt official that will take the occasional bribe. For the most part, he's in the straight and narrow, but he does have a dark side to him. And as a matter of fact, there's some things I won't discuss here in public, but essentially he's not as upright and good as he appears to be. And in this picture here, I wanted to show him and one of his supporters. He's actually the watch captain in Baldur's Gate. So then I got to thinking about this, and I said, well, I want to do something to help people make content for Fantasy Grounds. Because I think what ends up happening quite often is you'll be in a campaign such as this, and you'll see everything already done. So, it's kind of like, there's already a map in here, and there's already, all this content that's been built already. So what I've done is I've utilized different tools to help me write and tell the story. So one of the first things I did was I came up with the idea for the assassin, for Arla Ravenshade. And what I did is I took this information and kind of condensed it down into Fantasy Grounds. But where I worked on it was actually, I used the Chat GPT AI tool. And this helped me build her backstory. So this is one of the tools that I want to talk about, that I have been talking about for the last few times I've done video streams, is this helps you with writer's block. It can't do everything. And I've even had it make stat blocks for me and all kinds of really cool stuff. So one of the things that helped me generate was her backstory, which I think was really cool. In this case, it says that Arla Ravenshade is a skilled and cunning assassin who has always preferred to work alone. She values her independence and her ability to make her own decisions, and she knows that she is most effective when she's able to rely on her own skills and resources. When Arla is hired to steal a valuable magical artifact from a wealthy merchant in Baldur's Gate, she initially thinks that she's able to complete the job on her own. However, as she begins to plan her heist, she realizes that the merchant has hired a group of guards to watch over the artifact at all times, and she knows that she will need to be stealthy and resourceful in order to get past them. So she's kind of pondering, how to get through the situation. And what we're going to do is build the encounter where she actually has to get past the town guards. And there's not any old town guards. I mean, this is her arch enemy, Wortimer. So he knows that she's up to no good. He knows about the potential that there is this merchant that's been hiring people out. So he's going to make sure that he stands in her way. And one of the things I wanted this to kind of represent was the things that would stand in your way of learning the content. And I think you have kind of a misconception that Fantasy Grounds is really hard. it's only really hard in the amount of time that you have to put into it. So once you start doing that, it does get a little easier, and it takes patience and a little bit of help from others. But once you kind of get the gist of it, it's not too bad. So I'm going to go over some of the tools that I'm using to create this content, because again, you're going to mostly be inside of Fantasy Grounds. You're going to have all the stuff made for you. Like here, I've already went and I made a map that I'm going to use during this encounter, but I didn't actually build the map. The map itself is from Chris from Game Tile Warehouse. It's actually a map pack that I picked up on the Fantasy Grounds store. They're called the Meanders, and I'll have a link for this at the end of the video, but essentially you can buy these Meander packs on the Fantasy Grounds store. They're pretty well done. They're very colorful. Sometimes some people complain they're a little busy, but they can really help you, because there's a whole ton of them. There's just so many different variations. And this is the Summer City map pack that I have loaded here. So just for the intro here, let me show you what I have for modules. So I have some of Rob Tui's coding effects, and the reason I have these is because I actually built Arla Ravenshade as a character. So I made her as an NPC and a character, but I also was given the help with Chat GPT. So I actually generated the character with this information that I gave it, and I also have some tables that I'm going to be putting into Fantasy Grounds, so we'll go over that. And then in the next episode, we're going to actually do more actually organizing and building. So this one is going to more or less go through the tools that I'm using and how this came about and that sort of thing. So the next thing that I wanted to tell you or show you is that there are several resources available to you out there. So you not only have Fantasy Grounds Store and the Fantasy Grounds Forge, but you also have the DMs Guild. I mean, there is a ton of content out there. I don't really think you have to worry too much and overwhelm yourself. But when you go to the DMs Guild, there is specific content that's actually created for the Fantasy Grounds platform. Some of it's older, but it just depends on what content you want. So this is my account here that I use. And then if you go to the filter over here on the left, you can click on Virtual Tabletop. And then it'll filter it out. And then from here, you can decide you want to do Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds. So I'll click on Fantasy Grounds to get that going through. They just recently partnered up with Roll20. So now that I've done that, now you can kind of go in and see which kind of content you want to use for whatever it is that you're trying to run or create. So what I usually do is, like in the case of this adventure, I would probably want to use stuff that's going to lend itself to the project or to the encounter. So I don't always go out and buy a bunch of new stuff for one encounter, but I might do it for a campaign or like a one-shot or something like that. The reason I'm going to do this just in one encounter is because I want it to be not so long. I don't want it to be drawn out. And I don't want to bore you with too much, overwhelming you with too much content at once. But there are tons of different things here. So I'm going to check out Baldur's Gate, because that's where I chose to actually put this campaign together. I just wanted to pick a city just to have a location. You could put it in any location. And by the way, if you are somebody that doesn't really play D&D or whatever, you can also do something similar in this if you want in regards to like Pathfinder. You might be using, for information, instead of using the SRD, you might be using the Archives of Nethys or whatever sources you have. So this is what I'm doing now, is grabbing sources. So if I wanted to run something in Baldur's Gate, I'm going to go take a look and see what's available on the DMs Guild, even if I don't need it, or if I might pick it up later. So I just picked this up and did a little search here. There's a Heroes of Baldur's Gate notice boards, monster loot. There's also In League with the Devils. I think I've already purchased that. This is a supplement for Descent into Avernus. And then there's some Ravnica stuff here, which I don't know why that's included. But nonetheless, I mean, these are some of the things that are available in Fantasy Grounds format that might help you with your encounters and your campaigns, depending on what you're working on. So this is one resource, is the DM's Guild. Most of it's fairly cheap or priced pretty well, but like this Heroes of Baldur's Gate, I picked this up because it's very useful. It has a lot of maps. It has some locations. So later on when we're doing our game prep, I'm actually going to pick a spot in Baldur's Gate to drop the battle map that I'm working on. And we'll kind of give it a whirl and see what it looks like. But essentially, I want to take the information from that content and kind of plop this map in there and use that as context for the encounter. So not only am I, grabbing stuff online, but I'm also incorporating my own stuff, and then I'm adding in third-party content to round things out. And, this would be more or less, if I was going to run Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, or perhaps a one-shot that's set in Baldur's Gate, or even if I was going to just kind of play around with it, I kind of go and get some of the content. Some of the stuff is on the Fantasy Grounds store, so like this Baldur's Gate item pack, this comes from the Fantasy Grounds store. I think it was a special license agreement that they got where it's actually the items from the video game. So if you played any of the older Baldur's Gate video games, a lot of these items will be recognizable to you. They come from that actual video game, so they got permission to produce this. So they have magic items and equipment, and it all comes from the actual video game. So here's the adventuring gear, has all these tomes and history books and such, which is really cool because if you skipped a lot of that reading in the video game, you could get caught up on it. But there's a lot of lore in here that might be useful to you when you're putting together your encounters and such. So these are some of the resources that I've picked up. And it's not something you do at once. I mean, you just kind of go and you collect things as you go. And some of the stuff's free. Most of it's paid. Not all of it's super high and expensive. It just depends on what your budget is, what your needs are. But like this is Baldur's Gate City Encounter. So this is kind of like a way to have encounters ready to go. So if you want to do something in Baldur's Gate, you have resources. So this is a Rim Press product, and looks like there's some inspiration sources that they've listed here, like Volo's Guide, Sword Coast. There's a Tomb of Annihilation, and there's a Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. So they took some resources from there. There's an introduction with a forward and everything. And then there's some tension encounters that are in here. So you can pick 5 different tension levels. So this would kind of, depend on what's going on in your game. But this could kind of help you build your encounter and make it more interesting and have more meaning instead of just a random fight. So one of the encounter outcomes is that if the character acted lawfully, you move the current level of tension 1 step towards martial law. If the current level of tension is already martial law, there's no change. So they have a mechanic put in here so that you can gauge and see what the neighborhoods are like, or what the tensions are. It could be political, it could be war, it could just be the Thieves Guild getting crazy, out of control, those sort of things. So then you have your neighborhood encounters. So we would probably use the lower city, and then I want the dock ward because that's where Arla Shaderaven hangs out. Ravenshade? She's from that area. I mean, that's her hangout essentially. So this is the Sea Tower, Heapside, Eastway, Brampton, Bloombridge, and then there's some art that goes with it. And then if you load the Heroes of Baldur's Gate, you're also going to get a bunch of maps. So if this is from the DM's Guild, so if I open this up, images and maps, there's a whole ton of different things that come from that. And it even has some of the classic heroes in here. Like here's the cover of it. And you have here's a map of I want the dock word. That's the one I was looking for. Maybe that's Neverwinter I'm thinking of. But nonetheless, so Baldur's Gate South, here's the DM map. So it has quite a nice, beautiful map. It's just not black and white sketches. And so here's the low lantern, here's the lower docks, here's the south dock. So these are locations that I can plop this map into. So if I wanted to, I could take this and drag and drop this link onto the map and link the map to whatever location I wanted in case I want to use this to present to the players or for me to keep track of where we've been. So what I'll probably do is stay in Baldur's Gate and just make different encounters that are related to or unrelated to in the vicinity of Baldur's Gate, kind of keep a theme to it. So when I'm all done with the series, I might do a different series if it comes popular enough where there would be more different types of encounters. Because right now, the way that I imagine this encounter to be is that she has to sneak past the guards to get through to the next part of the adventure. And it's not just going to be a cakewalk. I mean, I got her, right now I have a character version of her. So what I did is I kind of built the backstory, and I actually had it make an outline for me, which is this here. The Solo Encounters Urban Assassin was something I made in ChatGPT. So it helped me design that for me. I gave it some stuff, and then it just kind of spits out some randomness. I kind of went over it. I liked it. She's also a rogue. So what I did is I had it generate a list of 6 random results featuring assassin-themed equipment. So what it did is it gave me these 6 results, and I told it I only want 6 random results. And what this is I asked it to separate these by this pipe here. So when I go into Fantasy Grounds, I can just take this information, copy and paste it into Fantasy Grounds, and import the table. So if I go to into tables, and I'll go to this import tool, and now it's asking for simple. I'm going to go with delimited. That means it's separated by the characters. And then I'll change it to pipe. And the reason I use pipe, because sentences tend to have commas in them, and colons and semicolons and commas, so I prefer to use pipes. And then for column headers in the first row, I'm going to say yes, because it does have a column header. So if I paste this information in here, you see that it says dice roll with the pipe and then result. And then it has all the numbers on the left and all the results on the right. This is the format that will be acceptable. And what I'm going to do is call this a random PC, I guess a start item. So what I was hoping to do is for this encounter later on, when we get to the 3rd episode, is to include this table to roll when you start, and you get to pick one of the items, or it rolls essentially, and then that's what you get. So you get to add this to your character sheet, like the Poisoner kit or the Disguise kit, or the grappling hook, or the smoke bombs, or whatever, the dark vision goggles because she's human. Throwing daggers. So these are different items that you can use in this encounter to help get through it. I kind of like the idea of having a random element in there. So it's like she doesn't have this stuff now, but if she rolls on the table, the DM gives her this item, and she has to use it creatively to get through the encounter. So that's kind of one reason I'm doing a couple tables to kind of randomize this. The other thing is these meander maps that I spoke about earlier on the actual official store. So if I go to the Fantasy Grounds official store, and here, by the way, is the forums. It's a good place to go when you need help. Is go to the store. I'm going to go to the shop, and I will have these links later on in the video. And by the way, I'm not here to sell stuff, but essentially these are the tools that I'm using and where I get them from. So that's why I'm going over this with you, so you can see. I'm not trying to advertise so much for people, although I am using an affiliate link. You betcha. If I'm gonna mention it, I'm gonna use an affiliate link. So, anyways, these are the meander packs, And I'll tell you what, these are really, really nice. They don't have line of sight on them because they were created before Unity. But they do have a huge variety of expansions and different things. So I have the city pack, and I want to say it's the summer one. That's the one I used that I put my own line of sight on, and I'll go through that probably in a second video. We'll put the line of sight on there. But essentially, is you get a whole bunch of different maps to pick from. And one of the things that I had worked with Chris when he first started using Fantasy Grounds, and I said, one thing I think that would be cool if you got so many maps. It was only a suggestion; you didn't have to do it. But let me finish the table before I ramble on. So I'm going to hit import, and essentially it imports the table just like that. So it has the description. You can change the label if you want, but these are the dice rolls, and then this is the result that you get. So this isn't quite what I wanted because I didn't set it up properly. I was supposed to say the table ranges in first column, and then column headers in the first row. Let's see if that fixes it. So I'm just going to say random equipment table, because that's what that essentially is for the assassin. So it's delimited using a pipe. Is the column header in the first row? Yes, yes, yes. Happens. Yeah, so that's better. That actually fixed it. So I just forgot to click one of those boxes. But essentially, that's how I made the table. Was I used the Chat GPT. I just went and asked it to give me some tables. Now, before this, I was talking about D&D 5e, so you might change the rule set to Pathfinder or whatever, but maybe the items will be a little bit more themed for your whatever type of content you're creating. But then I made different types of, here's the different equipment. So I did it in a list view. So I can take this information here and copy and paste it. Instead of making a table, I can make my own notes in Fantasy Grounds. So I can go in and say, okay, so this is my list view. So right now, this is just a story entry that I have in Fantasy Grounds. So I'm going to come over here to the right, go to story. And then I made my own group, which is going to be, let's see, this is the solo play encounter. So I already have a couple story entries here. One is for this, and then one is for the encounter that I'm going to build. But for right now, this is going to essentially just be my starting point, because that's where I'm going to put all my notes and such. So I'm going to hit Control V and paste this information in here. And then I can call this equipment notes or something like that, or, starting equipment is probably what I should call it, so I know what it is later on. And this is a note that's going to be attached to the campaign, and whatever you need it for. It can be, for whatever content is necessary for your campaign. Essentially, I'm going to take this and I'm going to use this, and I'm going to go ahead and label it. So 00.03, just so I have some kind of starting point. And I do that with all this stuff so it's in order. I'll go back and fix the order later, but now it comes down to formatting. So when you copy and paste content from third-party materials like PDFs, websites, in this case, this is a website, so this is the information I got. You can see it didn't preserve all the formatting, and it put in double spaces into the actual text. So this is something you'll fight with when you use Fantasy Grounds and you're not familiar with it. So it doesn't preserve the formatting from outside sources. If you do it in Fantasy Grounds, it will, and that's kind of a new thing. But so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select the selected items, and I want to make these bullet points. So if I right-click, you can actually change the paragraph type, or if you know the shortcut key, so I think it's Control-5, I believe. No, that's a blank link. Control-5, so I'm going to hit Control-Z, which will get out of it. I think maybe it's Control-2. Nope, Control-2 is the header, that's right. So let me try. I'm going to go through all of them, I think. Okay, so Control-3 is the dialog box, but essentially these are the shortcuts that you're going to have. So it's probably 4. Yep. So there's 4. There's your indent. And then I'm just going to hit the backspace. and then hit enter again, it will create the other bullet point. I'm kind of being lazy about this because if I just backspace and then hit enter again, it'll automatically add, it'll carry over the formatting from the text from before that. So these are going to be my bulleted points. And then what I'll do is, with this information, I will put links in here for the actual items. So when I share this document, or if the player gets a hold of this, they can see the list, provided you want to share it with them. So what I'm going to do is put equipment here, and then I'm going to capitalize this because that's kind of like a header, or subheader anyways. So this is going to be the equipment list. And then what I'll do is I'll bold that so it looks a little nicer. And you just kind of go through this and you'll get the hang of it. But learning the shortcut keys helps a lot in Fantasy Grounds. So here's this. So this is the equipment list. And then I'm going to take, and later on when we're working on this, I'm going to add all of the items, like the actual links for the items. So if I go into the items area, I might search for some of these. So Poisoner's Kit, for instance. Now this assumes you have at least the Player's Handbook or at least the SRD. Not all this stuff is going to be in the SRD. You're probably going to have a couple books. I recommend starting off, if you're going to do this kind of stuff and make your own, at least get the 3 core books. So that's the Player's Handbook, the Monster Manual, and the Dungeon Master's Guide. You have those 3 books, you're going to fly pretty good. And then, of course, you get a license of some sort, whether it's a subscription or an ultimate or whatever. But you need definitely need like at least a standard license, which is like $5 a month, or you can get it for like $40, I think. But anyways, sound like a salesman. So anyway, so this is a way that you can supplement your data here and make it more convenient for you. So when your players come to the table and you're going to say, hey, I got this cool idea. I'm going to have you roll on the table to see what you get. So if I go over to the tables here, and then I go to I'm going to go uncategorized because I haven't put them in a category yet. So this is the random equipment table. This is the other one that didn't turn out right. Okay, so what we're going to do is, first of all, I can link this table to the actual data here. So instead of just having the text, I can actually put the rollable table here just to have, for convenience sake. And then that's basically the table. It's right there. You don't have to look for it. It's attached. It's ready to go. Now, what the problem with this table is there's no actual content or items. So we'll get into that later, but essentially we'll build another table that will have the items, and you can roll on that table and it will produce a parcel that you can output to your player and just put it on their inventory sheet on the party sheet here. So if you go to the party sheet, you can actually, if you put the characters on here. So right now I don't have Arla on here, but if I go to the party sheet and then I go to this combat tracker, I'm going to actually put her on, because this is one of the steps you need to do anyways if you're going to run, like an encounter or some kind of campaign. So I'm going to drag and drop this little link on the right hand side here. It looks like a little bullet here. Just going to drag and drop that on there. So this is where once you have the parcels made up, you can drag and drop that to here, so that this way you'll be able to more easily award her the item. And if it's set up right, it'll automatically add it to their character sheet. So back to what we're talking about. So the content that I've created here is coming from this Chat GPT, essentially. So I actually created her stat block in an NPC format as well. So this isn't the correct format because this format here does not parse correctly. So what I had to do is tell it to train the GPT to do the correct format. Otherwise, it doesn't import into Fantasy Grounds the right way. And then this is also a table here to 6 random potential events that will be rolled on a 1d6 roll, themed specifically for the encounter with guards and the watch captain in Baldur's Gate and focused on Arla's task to sneak past the guards. So there was other dialogue here before. So just to let you know that this conversation in GPT with the AI goes back a ways, so it knows what I'm talking about. So this is a revised list of random events, and it's kind of themed for the encounter because I want it to kind of go with that. So what you do is you feed the chat GPT all this stuff, and it can generate really cool content. So here is another table that I can import into Fantasy Grounds, and essentially we can roll on that, and it would say that different things. Like one example is Arla is trying to steal a valuable item from a wealthy patron and must sneak past the guards to get it. Let's see, another result, number 4, says Arla is trying to meet up with a group of thieves to plan a heist and must sneak past the guards to join them. So what we do is we roll this as a starting point for the encounter. So not only do we get a starting item, but we get kind of like a starting motivation potentially, unless your player and the GM, or just the GM in this case, decides to roll something random. So the way I'm going to set this up is you can either run this with one player and a GM, or maybe 2 players and a GM, and then you can run it the other direction. So not only can you run this as the player character Arla Ravenshade, but you can also play it as the Watch Captain Wortimer. So I'm going to make his character in episode 2. So we'll take and build his character as an NPC and a character sheet. And then that way we could play it in both directions. So we'll have the NPC version and the character version. So if you don't want to play a rogue assassin that's trying to sneak past the guards, then you're going to play an actual law-abiding citizen or in this case a watch captain that's trying to track down a dangerous criminal. So we're going to run this 2 different ways to kind of make it more interesting. It increases the replay value, and it still ties in with the story. So it's kind of a double-edged advantage, I guess. Not a sword, but a double-edged dagger. But nonetheless, these are the kind of things that you can do in Fantasy Grounds to kind of get used to it. What it does is it gives you more practice with tools. So I can go into, in a little bit here, I'll go into Canva, which is another tool that I use quite often for creating content. So Canva is a paid application. It's something that, I'm not saying go out and get it, but it definitely helps me with creating content. It's how I do all the social media. But this is the picture that I was able to generate. Now, again, I used Midjourney AI to create the artwork. So I asked it to generate a guard, with dressed in this kind of armor and with these kind of features, and then I had Arla created also separately. So this is actually different images. It's not just one static image. So this is a combination of images. So this Canva gives you a kind of a neat way to lay out graphics. Not necessarily a way to create graphics, but it is a way to kind of compile them together, make presentations and that sort of thing. So it's really helpful, a tool that I've been using the last couple of years. Use it for social media, but I also use it for handouts. So when you want to create immersive content for your table, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bookmark this. So when you're working on something, you can take the link on the top left corner and drag it to the hotkeys. So later on, if you want to come back to it, you can just pop it up. So that's another nice little tip in Fantasy Grounds. And then here's our table, which we didn't finish, but I wanted to show you how the chat GPT can translate over into Fantasy Grounds. We'll do more of that in the next episode. This is kind of an introduction episode where we're actually just kind of going into the tools and how these things are built and, those sort of things. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask. This is a live stream. I mean, I don't answer every single question, but, if there's something related to this content or if you want to see something built or something, we'll do that throughout the series. So there's 2 more. Next Monday and the following Monday, we'll have the rest of this. So this map is already set up, but when I do episode 3, I'm going to deconstruct this and we're going to put it together, or at least put the line of sight on there. So this is an existing map that was already created. Came from that summer pack that I showed you on the store. And then we'll go to the line of sight. And you can see I kind of made this complicated because I'm thinking that this is a rogue, so she might use the rooftop. So I did kind of make this more complex than it needs to be, because she can hide behind different things here, and I kind of wanted to emulate that. And then I don't even know if this is the good way to do it, so we'll find out. But like this table, this isn't actually terrain, this is a shadowcaster. So when you go to put this on and you take control of this character, it's going to, you got the shadows in here. And what I'm going to do is set up the guards. There's 2 guards and the guard captain, Wortimer. His name is Darius Wortimer. So I'm going to set them up and post them around here. And she essentially has to get through here, either fighting or a sneak past or whatever. And it's a short encounter. But I'm doing all this work to make the encounter memorable. I'm also practicing using fantasy grounds, because I could just throw a map together, throw an encounter, and call it good. But what happens is in gameplay, when your players start asking questions like, oh, who owns this building over here? Can we go inside of it? Those sort of things. This is where having a little bit of extra content would be helpful. You don't have to go in and detail every little thing in here, but it'd be nice to say, oh, the family of so-and-so lived in this building. It's now abandoned and boarded up. It would cause too much of a ruckus and too much noise to break into it at this point. So you can just do that. If they insist that they want to go inside, you can just say it's going to make too much noise. It's going to attract the guards. You're basically going to fail the agenda or the objective. So that's kind of what these encounters will be, as an objective. And a series of objectives. So not just one, but maybe 3 or 4. I like 3 as a good number. I think it's well rounded. So we might do 3 different of these series. We'll do one. This is from the perspective of Arla. And then maybe we'll do another one from the perspective of Wortimer. And then in the 3rd series, we will tie it together with the big bad evil. Maybe it's something far worse than either of these 2 factions. So it might be something that can build, and we can actually create a whole one-shot or something just with the ideas that come up with. And I do value guys' opinions. If you have anything that you want to add or you want to see during these series, that'd be great. So essentially, the idea here is to create content, learn how to use the platform, but also understand the tools. Like, for instance, this is Notepad++. I use this for text formatting. This allows you to analyze text in its true form, and not with all the HTML and all the extra spacing and that sort of thing. So when you copy and paste a stat block from a PDF or from another source, like an online stat block, this is what you're going to see. So what I'm going to do is just kind of show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to actually take a blank document, and then if I go to, I think it's, if I go to D&D Beyond, let me take a look at this. So I need to go to my other account. So I'm going to go to D&D Beyond and take a stat block from there, and then I'll show you kind of what I was talking about. So this is my D&D Beyond account. So what you can do is, in this one, you have, you can go to the monster manual or some of the homebrew stuff. I like going through the homebrew stuff because even though they may not be built very well, I still like to look at all the content and stuff that people are making, essentially. So these are the sources. You have collections, homebrew collections, homebrew creations. There's stuff in here for that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for, let's see, an assassin, since this is kind of on the topic. So here's an assassin. So this is a monster, or a shadow assassin. That's even cooler. But anyways, let's take a look at the assassin. This is the stat block that you'll see on something like D&D Beyond, or if you use Pathfinder, maybe they have a similar format. So this is kind of a good model to use. So I would use this actually in the Chat GPT. So I hit Control Copy, and now I'll go back to the Chat GPT application. Let's see. So if I go up here and go to here, I'm gonna tell this. I'm gonna say to create this rogue or assassin. So I'm gonna hit Control V. So this is the text. This is what it looks like, and then in this Notepad++, I'm gonna do the same thing. So if you can see here, it's kind of rolled this thing out into this kind of unusable format, but this is what it looks like in its true form. This is what Fantasy Grounds wants to see. It wants it laid out just like this. If there's any deviation or a missing period or a missing comma or anything like that, it's not going to accept it if you're trying to import this as an NPC. So if I'm going to take this data that I have here and I can import it into Fantasy Grounds as an NPC. So if I go to the NPCs and then I go to the import tool, I can import it into here, but the formatting has to be correct. So I hit Control V and it looks good. Like I can tell because the way the stat block is situated. It automatically has a filter built into it. So they kind of built one for D&D Beyond and the Monsters of the Multiverse formatting. And if you had any backstory or stuff that doesn't have to do with the actual content here or the stat block, you can paste it over here on the right, which is your just stories and everything else. But I'm going to go ahead and click import. And what you'll see is it actually did it right. It put the assassin in here. It put all the stats in here, all the traits. You go to the back tab. See, that's exactly what you want to see. The key is, though, is you need a model or something to look at so that you're able to tell what the format should look like. There's one other format where it's vertical, but this is the D&D Beyond format. And these are some of the tools that you can use to look at this stuff and to fix it. So if I go back to the Chat GPT thing, I can say, okay, so this is the format. And what I'm going to do is come up here, hit Shift, so I can, if I hit Enter, it'll actually execute. I want it to say, I'll say D&D 5e Beyond. I'll just say it like that, template. I'm trying to shorten it so I don't have to type that out. Okay, so this is going to be a template for the Chat GPT. It's going to look at this and say, okay, this is the way you want it formatted. And then down below, another line below, I'm going to give it I'm going to ask it to generate another NPC based on this format. So I'll say, please, I don't have to say please, but please generate a D&D, I'm going to 5e monster stat block for a goblin. For a goblin. And I'll say using, so I'll say above is a template. Please generate a D&D 5e monster stat block for a goblin and all the themed traits, or I'll just say all the traits, all the race traits, and class features, and also add a short backstory. You can kind of get really into this. So, and all it's going to do is it's going to look at that format above, and then it's going to generate randomly based off whatever the model has in its database. So they trained the Chat GPT from 2021 on back. So if you try to give it something really new, it's probably not going to know what you're talking about. But since they fed it almost the entire internet from before 2021 and back, it can do a pretty good job at generating this. So I'm going to have it generate the stat block for a goblin assassin. Right now it just says assassin, and then it says medium, humanoid, any race, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to say, please generate a D&D 5e monster stat block for a goblin, and with all the traits, we want all the race traits and class features, and also add a short backstory and a random NPC name. So it's going to give them a name too. So it's not just going to say assassin. So I'm going to do that, and so I just kind of asked it to do this, and it really matters what the formatting of your words are. So if you're going to use that, hit enter. Oops, it's having trouble because, yeah, it's so overloaded right now. There's thousands of people using this, but yeah, it generated an error because it's first of all, I haven't used it in a while. Secondly, it's having problems. So this is the template. So I still have the template. So if I come in here and edit this, I might be able to get it back. Yeah, I can give this back. So and it's still it's erroring out because it's having problems. So what I'm going to do is edit. I'm going to hit Control A, or actually I'm just going to copy what I had here. That way I can preserve my information so I don't lose it. And then what I'm going to do is refresh the page, because it might be disconnected from the actual. See, it says we're experiencing exceptionally high demand. We got millions of people using this right now, so don't expect it to be perfect. It's still in beta, and I imagine they're going to charge for it. So that's coming up real soon. Okay, so it looks like it's trying to think. Before everyone else and their mother started using it, it was a lot quicker. Like, it wouldn't hesitate like that. It would actually write the stat block out really fast. So it's actually going in and even calculating some of the things that would go along with it when it comes to Goblin. It even put the Goblin language on here. It's put Nimble Escape on here because that's one of the Goblin traits. It just kind of just took the model above and it inserted its own stuff. So it's not the same thing, but it worked because it knows the formatting. And it even put this little backstory. So the Goblin's name is Gribble. He was part of a group of thieves that terrorized the countryside. However, after a failed heist, Gribble was the only survivor and was forced to flee. Now Gribble wanders the land looking for an opportunity to make quick coin. So what I'm going to do with this guy is I'll put him in the encounter. So if I want to run him as like an ally for Arla Ravenshade, I can. So that's kind of cool. So I might just grab this, copy it, since I don't want to waste all this time and not use it. So I'd take and put this in the fantasy ground. So I'll go back to the NPCs, go to this import tool, hit Control V, and then this backstory part, I'm actually going to copy and paste it and then delete it off the parsing section. So this says backstory up here. I'm going to hit enter or shift or enter. And then I'm going to highlight this up here. So I'll hit Control 2, which is the formatting for the header. And then this stuff down here, I'm going to actually get rid of this because I don't want to include that in the parsing. So this is all the information that it's going to parse. So let's see what that looks like in Notepad++. Is it the same kind of thing we had before? So let's see. Yeah, so we go to the left here. So this is what the formats look like. Once you understand that, what the format is supposed to be, it really makes it. So this is the formatting. And once you get an idea of what it should look like, when you put this in the fantasy grounds, it should work pretty well. Once in a while, it'll hiccup depending on, if you put in a lot of homebrew stuff, it kind of hiccups. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and see if this imports correctly. So this is Goblin. He has a name, but it didn't put his name in. But we could put, in parentheses, we could put Gribble. So let's do that. But actually, we could do that later. I don't want to mess with the formatting. So I go ahead and hit import. And it worked. So what do you know? So what we have here is the Nimble Escape, his scimitar, his short bow, his languages, the CR challenge rating. You can actually ask the Chat GPT to rewrite the stat block, but with a higher with a higher CR level. So let's say, I'll just say rewrite the stat block above, but write with a challenge. That's what it's called in this case, or challenge rating. I just say challenge because that's what it says on the stat blocks. 3 with all of the stat block adjustments. So if there's anything that needs to go up, bonuses and that kind of thing, and class traits. So he might just be a first level or something, so we might want to tell it to rewrite it with a higher CR value, so we can do that. So this is just one tool at your disposal. I don't want to spend a lot. I've already done like 3 of these, but essentially this is the thing you can do with it, and it'll take this stat block above, because I told it to use the stat block above, and it's going to take, here's a Goblin Assassin. Now it says any non-good. Armor class gives it a 16 in this case. Higher hit points because it's a higher CR level. Didn't change the ability scores. It did adjust all of the skill bonuses and such, and the passive perception. And then it says Thieves Can't plus any one language. So it added in it knows Goblin and Thieves Can't. So it added that in because it's higher. So it has Assassinate, Evasion, Sneak Attack. So it actually added in the Assassin features from the subrace, or from the subclass, or the class features. So it's adding in all of the traits, even the class traits for a higher level. So it's roughly around a 3rd level. So it has its archetype now. So see that you can really do some cool stuff to make your life a little bit easier. That's all I'm trying to say. And like I said, you can use Notepad++ to compare the text to see what it looks like. You can also, it's better to edit here than it is in Fantasy Grounds, so you can kind of see what's going on, because this actually counts the extra spaces and the carriage returns and all that kind of stuff. So that's important that you understand how the formatting goes. But that's just one application here. So here's the Goblin, and we're going to just kind of, I'll close this up. But it looks pretty good. Like, it looks pretty professional. If you have artwork that you generate from, let's say, Mid-Journey, like I did with that stuff in Canva, you can attach that to here. So for Arla, just for her character, I bring up her character sheet. I made this portrait, and I had a separate token that I made for this particular NPC using online tools. So I used Roll Advantage token stamp. So I'm going to bring that up. So this is just another tool. So I want to go to, this is a pretty common tool that a lot of people will use. It's free, it's something that might be useful to you. So essentially you can just drop something in here. So I'll go to my hard drive and see if I have anything I can throw in there. So yeah, so here's, okay, so let me do one of the guards. Yeah, I'll do what's his name, Wortimer, or maybe just one of the other guards, I don't know. Yeah, I'll just grab anything. So I'm going to drag and drop an image in here. And this is a PNG file, so it makes it easier to stretch. So I might use this guy as just a generic guard token. Or this guy here. That one would be better. Because the other guy looks more like a lieutenant. And then you could stretch this to where it'll fit that little ring. So it depends on what the picture's for. So normally tokens, I make them round so that they stand out more on the map, but you can make them square. And then if you want this to be more like a portrait, you can change the shape here. So instead, you can make that a square, and you have a little bit more real estate. So if you want to make a portrait, you kind of want to leave it square, and you don't want the border if you can help it, because Fantasy Grounds already kind of has a border. So if you look carefully up here on this portrait, it already kind of has a border. So if you put another border around it, It's going to get really small. So I usually go with a borderless thing when it comes to the portrait photo. But when I'm doing a NPC kind of token type thing, I'm going to use this round, or one of the round features here. So there's a thin one. There's these thicker kind of 3D looking ones, the bevel, kind of like that. And you could change the background color or the tint. So if you wanted this to be more themed, like maybe you wanted a blue color, you could do that. So it just depends on what your needs are. But essentially, once you do that, you hit this download button, and it'll download this. Its default size is 256 by 256. The recommended size for a portrait is 100 by 100. If you're going to make it a token, you can make two versions. You can make a 100 by 100 and then a 200 by 200 version if it's like a giant or large creature. But that's roughly the dimensions. 256 by 256 is doable. It's not too big, but it's big enough so you can see. And then when you need to convert it into Fantasy Grounds, you just have to shrink it down a little bit. So this is just a sample of some of the things, the tools that you can use online. And there are other tools, plenty of other tools out there. I'm only sharing this because I want you to see that this stuff is, there's no mystery to it. There's no, nothing secret about it. It's just a way you learn over time the different types of tools that'll help you with your game. So, like, I'm using the DM skill to get content. I'm using the token stamp to generate my own tokens. There's other programs that kind of do something like this. I don't use them though. I'm using this Canva to make social media posts and create content with this. And then, of course, then I have the Fantasy Grounds store, so there's stuff on there. There might be stuff on the Forge. So if you go to the store and go to the Forge, this is all the community-created content. And then, like, if you're having, see, here's another, someone put this together, another rule set. Damned, made another rule set. Here's a map. This narrow street could be used in this scenario that we were getting ready to build. So if I go to this narrow street, kind of get an idea. Yeah, I like the map. I'm not so sure about the assets. This looks like I can't remember the name of it, but I don't really care for the kind of the painted look, but I do like the colors and I like the layout. So this might be a useful map. But yeah, so if you have the, something, maybe I'll pick this up. So I'll just hit buy that and confirm it. Yeah, so I just picked that up. So when I download updates from Fantasy Grounds, or when I go to, update, it'll pull that in and I can use it. So these are just some of the things that you might use. And then, of course, you have your text editing tool, this Notepad++. What else do I use? Oh, the Midjourney is it's a paid but also free app. Let me see if I can find that. Go to Midjourney. So this is something that you can generate it through Discord, and then you also have like a portfolio that you can use. Yeah, so this website is essentially just a portal, and then you have a gallery that you can go to, your own personal gallery, or you can see other people's galleries. So essentially most of your stuff is public unless you pay them to keep it private. But nonetheless, nothing I'm making is secret or proprietary or anything. So anyway, so Midjourney is just another tool that I use to generate images with. So that's kind of what I wanted to share with you guys today, is the fact that there's lots of tools out there and there's lots of different things you can do. Before you even begin a campaign or start anything, you can create quite a bit of content in a fairly short amount of time. Like, if I didn't have all these tools and I was doing all this from scratch, like with, let's say you had a copy of Adobe, you had a few assets, and then you were using, that sort of way, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's going to take a hell of a lot longer. And especially all this writing. I mean, if this Chat GPT is going to be a paid product, I'm definitely going to invest in, I think, because it helps my writing, and that's where I suffer the most. Like, my writing is really crappy. Like, I lose focus quite easily, and I have a hard time sticking with it. So this kind of motivates me to write, and it also helps me plan for things. So nonetheless, I think that's where I'm going to leave off today. Hopefully, some of this stuff helps you. Again, I will leave the information in the description after the video. It's going to be on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook. So if you missed any of this, you can go back and watch it. Put some questions in the chat if you have any, or any criticisms, and let me know if this content is something that you want to see in the future. Because I kind of planned out 3 of these, and if it works out right and it seems like it's popular enough or people want it, I'll continue the series and I'll go into more different depths of using Fantasy Grounds. But the next episode will be next Monday, and I will be working more in Fantasy Grounds, a little bit less outside, and I'll have more of the work done, and we can make tables and NPCs and stuff. But that's what I had done before, just to kind of test this method out. So I'd already made some tokens and such, and then I had some artwork, I believe, that like these handouts that I wanted to show you that really kind of helps with the immersion in your game. You can use this stuff to enhance your games and make it more interesting and make it more customized and not so predictable. Because by the time you run a campaign or a game that actually has official content, everyone and their mom already knows about it. So it's nice when you're able to embellish and add your own things and kind of make it more unique. And players will say, "Hey, that's not in the module." And say, "Well, no, it's not." Because you're just using the content to kind of help your story along. You don't let the content run your game. I mean, you basically make your content, you make it work for you, you fit it in how you want. You don't let the game narrate how your gameplay goes. That's a whole different thing. That's like playing through a video game from start to finish. It's not how this should work, anyways. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I just I prefer to run the game and not let the game run me, essentially. But anyway, so take care, everyone. You have a good week, and I'll see you next Monday. And like I said, leave comments in the chat or in wherever this ends up posting at the end of this, and